Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Wednesday, the 30th day of August, 2023, Wednesday of the 21st week of the year, the 21st week in Ordinary Time. It is Wednesday, so it is Community Mass once again for our school, the Franciscan School. A few this time from the choir area where Mr. Jim plays his music, and then off to the side of the altar right over there behind me, and then the rest of the nave, over there on that side. I forget. I think we have sixth grade. No, we had sixth grade last week. I forget, seventh grade maybe? I think it's one of the upper grades. Yes, I'm not sure, but who's coming in to lead Mass today, but they'll all be here in a couple of minutes. So our readings for today, Thessalonians, we continue with Thessalonians, the first letter that Paul writes to them. Again, the earliest of the letters that we have in our collection, perhaps even earlier than the Gospels themselves. And in this whole first two chapters of Thessalonians, Paul basically maps out or refreshes for the Thessalonians what it is that he has done for them. And he talks about how the faith was brought to them. And again, it's Silvanus and it's Timothy and it's Paul. So it's a trio of them who've come to Thessalonica to help the Thessalonians understand a little bit more about what it is that they are receiving when they receive the gospel. And again, the characterization that Paul uses to describe how the faith was passed on to them is as a father teaches children. Again, not father, not a mother, but a father teaches children. And it's by way of sort of encouragement and insisting and things like that. One of the words that's kind of missing from Paul's description of this, though, is patience. And so you wonder, when you look at some of other Paul's letters and what he writes to the churches in Asia Minor and the Eastern Mediterranean, there does not seem to be a lot of patience in this man's life. And again, perhaps because he saw the good of the gospel and wanted it spread, but it's also probably because, again, he was not a patient person himself. And so, again, to say that he treated the Thessalonians as a father would treat children in the teaching them the faith, but without patience, might have been something that was lacking. The faith still stuck, it seems, and it seems to have worked in Thessalonica, and it seems to have remained in Thessalonica. But again, the idea that faith cannot just be forced upon people, and it cannot be pushed upon people's lives. It cannot be nagged upon their lives. It has to be presented as something that is viable and rational and reasonable to the extent it can be, but also relevant in our lives. And that is why sometimes people back away from the faith, because we were just a little bit too insistent and not patient enough. So something to learn, perhaps, from looking a little bit more deeply at this part of Paul's letter to the Thessalonians. In the gospel, Jesus continues his harangue and the anger that he has against the Pharisees and the scribes, because again, they are teaching rules and regulations, they are teaching doctrines, they are teaching data, they are not teaching a way of life, they're not teaching a way in which to live this life in a way that is worthwhile and that has power and a basis to transform life. They are just basically teaching something to keep people in check, to keep a status quo, to keep order, to keep authority, their own authority in motion. And that's not helpful. That's not what faith is about. It's not about rules and regulations, but some people turn to that because they think it's the easiest way for people to embrace faith and to live their faith and things like that. So what makes us what makes us different, perhaps as believers, is that while there are rules, while there are kinds of regulations and things like that that we are called to follow, if we are not conscious of the fact that we are building relationship and about caring for one another and living with one another and understanding how each other embraces faith and embraces their lives that change and that are transformed because of the faith that we possess, then we are not helping people to grow in faith. We are not doing what needs to be done. Jesus likens the Pharisees to whitened sepulchres, going to look all nice from the outside, but are filled with filth and decaying and dead men's bones inside. That's a terrible, terrible commentary to give, to these people. But it is, unfortunately, the truth that their lives were not necessarily bent upon helping the people of Israel understand and embrace God. It was perhaps more about keeping their own power and control. We always have to be conscious of that as a church, that we are not about keeping control over other people's lives, but that we are trying each other to understand the wonder and beauty of God in our midst. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.